Kevin Byrne, streaming to you live on multiple social media platforms, conducting our first virtual town hall in Putnam County government. Now, what I'll share with you, and many of you know from past experience with me as your state assemblyman, I've held a number of virtual style town hall forums, constituent forums. When I was your state assemblyman, that was predominantly also through COVID, but also just to engage with constituents. And obviously, as technology has evolved and streaming capabilities have advanced, it's something that more and more people, more and more municipalities are doing. It's something I believe in. I wanted to make sure that we could set up our conference room in the county executive's office for streaming capabilities. So not only can I meet with constituents, engage with them directly and in multiple settings at events, but also at our constituent forums and at legislative meetings, but I can engage with them virtually at these important town halls. What I'd like to share with you is this is now being simulcast on multiple platforms. I believe we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, maybe not. I'm sure this will be shared on X or Twitter. It's on multiple different pages. So specifically, the County Gov's platform, which is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, but also on my personal platform, which is the Burn for NY handle. And I think it's important to highlight that the way that we're doing it, even though the devices we're using allow us to simulcast on multiple platforms and all of them at once, we're not doing that because sometimes I have used my personal platform to promote campaign activities. So what we're actually using is two cameras called Amivo. One I've owned personally for quite some time, and the other is a function of county government that we purchased within our budgeted office's budgeted allotment. And I'm going to show them to you really quick so you can see them and you know what we're doing. I'm going to be using the camera for I believe the Burn for NY handle so you can see it. But I'm going to show this around. And Chris Formasano, our communications director, who is ACES, is here helping make sure I don't mess anything up. But there you go. Smile, Chris. But you can see we have this beautiful Putnam County, New York sticker on there to make sure that everyone knows that's the County Gov one. And the one that I'm moving is the one that we use on the Burn for NY platforms. The Burn for NY platforms are on a personal phone using data, no county internet or anything like that. But I think it's important that we just distinguish that because I'd like to have this set up so we can stream other things in the future as well. I will say we might have some technical hiccups. I'm not so sure, but we were reminded via email at 4:30 that our IT department, who's remarkable, we're doing some sort of update on the internet. So there was a little bit of a snafu that we remedied. Internet's back up, and we also have access to stream through data as well. For those that want to comment or chat on this virtual town hall, please feel free to enter questions into the chat or direct message us on either platform. You can also send in an email, as always, through our county government website, and that goes through to an email address to me in my office. It's countyexecutive@putnamcountyny.gov. Please feel free to use that, countyexecutive@putnamcountyny.gov. And while people like Chris might regret me saying this, you can always call us too. So 845-808-1001. We have some staff that's working late today in the office. So if you have a question that you want to call in, sorry, this isn't like live television. We're not going to get you on the actual live stream, but they'll take down your question, write it down, and make sure I can get it. So 845-808-1001. So one of the things I want to talk about was current events, some of the accomplishments that the amazing people in county government have been able to get done these past few months. And obviously some of the upcoming news that's on the horizon. People ask me often, well, what does a county executive do? And people that are just trying to understand what's the division of county, state, federal government. I would say the biggest responsibility for any executive, it's their budget. It's where they prioritize taxpayer spending. It's what they show what their priorities are, what taxpayers can actually afford. And why I say that is because we're at that point in time where we're preparing for our 2025 budget. We're about pencils down. We've been working diligently the last several months with all of our department heads, elected officials, our district attorney, our sheriff, our county clerk, coroners, you name it. We're at that point where we're preparing to present that budget to the legislature next week. The Putnam County Charter mandates the county executive present it, I believe, by October 1st. So we do that in writing, and then there's an actual formal presentation on the budget given to the legislative body, and that is scheduled for next week, Thursday, October 3rd. We will plan to have that live streamed because, quite frankly, not everyone can attend in person. There's limits to capacity. Anyone that is interested in the Putnam County budget, you are welcome to visit our county website, which is putnamcountyny.gov/25budget. You can also sign up to attend in person to make sure you have a spot. Again, putnamcountyny.gov/25budget. I will not get into too many details on the budget because, quite frankly, that's what the budget presentation is for, and I don't want to give away too many trade secrets when we have to present to the legislature. None of this happens without consent and passage by our legislative representatives. That's a very, very critical and important function. But I will tell you this. Last year, we had some major accomplishments. We reduced the property tax rate from your county portion of your property tax bill to its lowest level in 15 years. We reduced the overall tax burden to its lowest level in over 20 years. And we're going to continue the majority of those tax cuts that were instituted last year. And we're going to do even more to try to drive down that property tax rate even further. Another important thing that we did last year that we're realizing this year finally now, and it's already been committed to extend to next year, but our budget will accommodate for that, is the continuation of the sales tax exemption. As inflation runs rampant across the country, and we're trying to find ways to give some form of financial relief, one of the things we're often talking about in county government is sales tax revenue. We rely on it heavily for our county government's operations. But sales tax, while as important as it is inherently regressive, meaning that it affects those on the lower income scale disproportionately more than those of higher income with higher wages. So think about that single mom that needs to get a pair of underwear for their newborn, or a pair of socks, or getting ready for back to school clothing. So this sales tax exemption exempted clothing and footwear under $110. And it started March of this year, 2024, and goes till March of 2026. So if you haven't taken advantage of that, please do. It's important. The state does not charge sales tax on those items either, which means when you purchase those items in Putnam County, whether it be online or in person at a small business here in Putnam, you will be paying zero sales tax, which is something unique and different from our neighbors in Westchester or even in the city of Danbury in Connecticut. So please take advantage of that. I do want to talk about a couple other things, obviously, before we start going into the questions. I talked about making sure that we do everything we can to make Putnam County as affordable as we can. We always strive to do better. But it's also about accessibility and accountability. And when I talk about Putnam County being a Think Differently County, something that the legislature committed to several years back before I was the county executive, but I was in the assembly. Actually, it was then legislator Barbara Scuchamara and I presented on Dutchess County Executive Mark Molinaro's Think Differently initiative. The county adopted it, and we're putting that into action. We talk about affordability, we also talk about accessibility and accountability. Some of those things means simply being accessible and accountable to the residents, to taxpayers, to citizens. So we've done that in a multitude of forms. I've alluded to it earlier. We did it with our Coffee with County Executive. We've done it with our Trailblazing with Burnham forums. You have some photos here where we were in the village of Cold Spring. We were in the southeast at the Maybrook Trailhead. We were at the Lake Carmel Fire Department. You name it. Those are all important in-person engagements where, quite frankly, you and your neighbors are given the opportunity to grill me. And no elected official is really worth their salt if they're not able to go out into the public and answer critical questions. I don't pretend to get everything right, but we do our darndest. And I think the best way to do better is to take important constructive feedback and then put that into practice. We've taken our live streaming capabilities farther than ever. When you think about how we're able to do this actual forum right now, Putnam County government didn't do this before. When I took office as your county executive, I believe the Facebook followers was somewhere maybe around 1,000. The Twitter was essentially deactivated, now X. Instagram, the county government wasn't even on it. Now, Putnam County government's Facebook page has over 5,000 followers as of a few weeks ago. We are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, and we do utilize X as a means to reach out to our followers, but specifically those who call Putnam County home and who are interested in the work of Putnam County government. I also want to talk a little about the history that brought me to this setup and this idea. And it's not something that clearly I came up with on my own. A lot of people live stream meetings and town halls. Certainly we experienced that through the pandemic, but it's also something I learned through other county executives and partners in government from across the state and even the country. The more specific examples I can point to are our neighbors, and that would be in Westchester, the county executive, George Latimer, as well as in Orange County, the county executive, Steve Newhouse. Now, George Latimer and I actually served together in the state legislature. He was in the state senate as a minority member, and I was in the state assembly as a minority member. So we always got along well, and he's the county executive. He's in his second term. He's got other aspirations, but he held a briefing. He does briefings every week or every other week. And what he does is he talks about current events, he talks about county government business. Westchester has over 1 million people now, so it's not the same as Putnam by any stretch, but he brings in guest speakers. And I was one of them last year, where I talked about the ideas that we were putting into practice in Putnam County, the policies, the programs, the personnel, and I think that was a really good idea. You don't just hear from guest elected officials from other counties, but he brings in nonprofit partners, subject matter experts. I think that's a good idea, and it's something that we may consider doing here in Putnam. And I'd like to hear from any followers. If you have questions or thoughts, if that's a good idea, if someone you'd like to hear from, let me know. Steve Newhouse in Orange County, similar. He does weekly updates where it's more at his desk, but it's less about engagement and the back and forth, but more about reporting out what's going on in Orange County, what the upcoming events are, what Orange County's business is doing, if there's emergencies that are going on. And Steve has a unique experience. He was, a background, he was the Chester Town Supervisor before becoming county executive. He's also an officer, commissioned officer in the United States Navy. So clearly when he talks about emergency services, it's with that personal experience and that perspective. And he's able to share that directly with the constituents of Putnam, in Orange County. So this is something new, at least for Putnam, but not new elsewhere. But speaking of things that are new for Putnam, I talked about the budget presentation to the legislature. That will be next week. I talked about this virtual forum. But one of the things that I think is important is that I don't just present the budget to the legislature at a public meeting. Yes, residents can go there. Yes, they can ask questions at the end, or they can at least comment on them. But I want to make sure that I really give you the opportunity to ask questions of me. It'll go through a legislative process after my budget presentation before there's a final budget. There's always compromise. There needs to be. That's just the nature of government. But I want residents to be able to have that opportunity to ask me questions. So we are going to host a budget town hall constituent forum after the budget. And that's going to be on Wednesday, October 9th. It's, I think, the first ever. I don't know of a county executive in Putnam that has done this after they already presented the budget to the legislature. It's going to be 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Carmel Town Hall. And I want to make special thanks and recognition to the town supervisor of Carmel, Michael Kazari, as well as all of his town board members for allowing us to use the Carmel Town Hall as a facility to engage with all of Putnam County's residents who choose to attend. Also, as a Carmel resident, I want to say thank you as well. It's certainly convenient for yours truly. This is just another commitment, another mechanism to engage with our neighbors. As we're doing this virtually, I want to just also share, for those who may be tuning in, again, you can ask questions in the comment section. You can call our office, 845-808-1001, and you can direct message us. I think that's just important, so I just want to reiterate that. The handle is Putnam County NY.gov, or I'm sorry, Putnam County Gov for Facebook and Instagram. Some of the other updates that we have before we start really going into questions is some of the success that our departments have had on capital improvements. which one of the biggest priorities I had when I first took office was ensuring that our facilities were improved, our infrastructure. We had Peekskill Hollow Road, quite frankly, it was a mess. We had a contractor that walked off the job a month before I took office. But the facilities that our public employees work in and that our residents utilize for important services, a lot of them were in disrepair. We went right to work in the beginning and completed major renovations. Our DPW, as well as some of our contractors, did major renovations for the Kohler Senior Center in Mahopac. This is a before picture, and this is an after picture. I believe, and this is a before picture, and this is an after picture. And I believe from talking to our amazing DPW Commissioner, Tommy Fury, they saved hundreds of thousands by doing a lot of this work in-house versus going to a contractor, which comes with prevailing wage costs and a number of other things. We also did, they did, I don't want to say we, I said yes, which is the easy thing to do. They do the work. 6N, Route 6N in Mahopac, the DPW garage. This is before. Many people would drive by. This is after. This is before. This is after. Can we go back to that before picture, Chris? The first before picture? If you drove by 6N and you saw this over the last 10, 20 years like me, and you weren't in government, a lot of people thought this was some sort of abandoned building. But it is a critical part of our DPW's operations, specifically when they have snow operations and extreme weather events. We were giving out salt at the outside, but it's also for, they do a lot of work. And now it's a place of pride. It's also a place where our men and women at the DPW can go to work and do it with a smile on their face. They put the work into the place that they go and work every day, so it's a big deal. I'm very proud of that. And then more recently, just this past year, major renovations to our Board of Elections. It's going to be a busy year with the elections, we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit. But if you had gone to the Board of Elections in the past, you would have saw this steel facade and rust on the bottom. I think Chris was already going through the before and after pictures. We just celebrated the completion of this major renovation earlier this year in the last month. It's before and after. You'd be surprised, you see cameras there. I took office, I looked at all of our facilities, I met with public employees. Shocked, absolutely shocked to learn that our Board of Elections had no security infrastructure, no cameras outside the Board of Elections. And with so much focus on election security and integrity, you need to have it at least at a base point. You need to have a proper facility, and it should have security cameras. And we have a remarkable job by our DPW, our IT department, and all the contractors. I believe it was DeBellis that were involved in that. I'm going to start opening up the questions. I've spoken on long enough. I do want to give one shout out to some of my friends. Oh, Chris is passing me some cards. The Feast of San Gennaro, Putnam County's first Feast of San Gennaro. It's a separate nonprofit that's holding this. It's going to be next week. No, this week. I believe the procession is tomorrow, Thursday evening, but you can go Thursday evening, tomorrow evening, and it goes Friday, September 27th, 26th. In the evening, it's at Veterans Memorial Park, Putnam County Feast of San Gennaro. Yorktown has done a phenomenal job with this special event. It's open to all. There's no charge. It's free admission, but it can be a real fun event. Great food. I know they're honoring a friend, Giulio Cefaloni, as their Grand Marshal, as well as the honorary Grand Marshal is Carmeltown Councilman, Mahopac's own Frank Lombardi. So if you can make it, please make it. So I can ask some questions, but I already got a couple that came in. So from Adrian, what are the rules for political signs? This is crazy. It's a great question. So Adrian, what I'll share with you is, we get this question every year with a contentious election. Political signs vary from town to town. It's not something the county government specifically gets involved in. When I was in the assembly, obviously I ran every other year in an even year. That happens to be a contentious election cycle because you're running either with the governor or you're running with the president of the United States. So that brings in a lot of passion. There are different ordinances for every town. I would encourage you to contact your town hall, go to their town website where you can look up the restrictions on on signage, specifically political signs, the size of the sign, where they can be located. In some towns, there's windows of opportunity where they can be displayed. Others are much more flexible. But I will say this, and it's actually somewhat of a response to an email we got about a week ago from an old friend. Regardless of the sign laws, we understand that presidential years brings presidential politics and a lot of emotions that go along with it. Whether you like a candidate or not, or whether you support the candidate or not, whether you're familiar with the town's sign laws or not, don't mess with the candidate's signs, please. Just don't do it. Whether they have an R next to their name or a D next to their name or something else, if you see a sign that offends you or you think is breaking the law, report it, call, but don't mess with it. It's bad practice. It just adds more animosity. And quite frankly, I don't think it's going to change anyone's mind, and I don't think you do either. So please, don't mess with anyone's political signs. Here's another question. David, Kevin, you're doing a great job. Well, that's very kind. Thank you, David. Got some more questions here. This is my other personal tablet here as well, for those who are wondering what that is. So just want to make sure that the stream was actually working. From Daniel, on the phone. Oh, Mr. Burkle must have asked to answer this because he's in the other side of the office.
Matt took the call.
Matt Carucci took the call. The county bus system is so limited. What can you do to fix public transportation? That's a great question. So that is something that the county government takes on more responsibility versus town. That's very common if you look at Westchester and these other counties. Putnam County does have a public transit system. We have a paratransit system. The transit system that we have is a sub-part of our planning department. It's planning, development, and public transportation. We have a vendor that does a lot of transportation. We have a trolley that does some transportation in Cold Spring. It also assists with public events. What I'm sure Daniel is driving towards is more about the public transit for people to go to work, or paratransit for other medical services, things like that. We do have transit for our seniors to get them to our Office of Senior Resources, but specifically really the senior centers where they have programs. And our transit system also is somewhat being remodeled as a pilot program. I mentioned this in last year's budget presentation. I also, I think, reiterated it in the state of the county, is one of the models we're exploring in Putnam County as a pilot in the Part 3 system, which is over in Patterson, where it was a route that was a fixed route, but it was grossly underutilized. It was costing us more per rider than any other route. We are supplanting that route with the a demand response system. There's an award contract that's been awarded. I believe the vendor's name is VIA, and it's I'm oversimplifying this, but it's the opportunity to provide more of a Uber-like system for government, where it can go directly to the people seeking transportation and get them to their destination. So you're not limited to a fixed route. That does a couple things. It increases ridership, which also leverages the federal reimbursement we get to support these programs. And it helps address some of the gaps in service. So that will help certainly the Patterson area, part of the Southeast area. But what it will also do will allow us to measure the success of this model, and if successful and efficient, perhaps permit us the opportunity to expand it. So by expanding it, I mean two things. One, we could look at the opportunity of putting the service in places that currently don't have the service, places like Putnam Valley and Phillipstown that are arguably underserved with public transit. But also we could fill gaps in service around other places that don't have that. So that's something that we're looking at. We have to measure the success of the demand response system over in Part 3 Transit, which is predominantly Patterson. We're looking forward, hopefully going to get that started in the new year, but it's something that we're very much still working on, and there's going to be a lot of public messaging on from the vendor to make sure people know that opportunity is available to them. And we're still very much in the throes of that. Mr. Formisano, do we have other questions that are coming in?
Yeah, there's a question on Facebook, on your Facebook page, from Ron Any update with migrants in the county?
Okay, that one's not coming on. I was trying to look
Oh.
at this, but that's good. I can see the one, I'm not seeing the other, but migrants coming out of the community. So obviously the migrant crisis has exploded across the country. There's a lot of factors for that. Many of them derive from the federal government's inaction, and that's my position. I've been very public about that. But the reality is, county government can't solve a border crisis, if you will. But we still do have a responsibility to respond and ensure that a federal crisis does not become a county localized crisis, specifically exploding into a homelessness crisis. Because when you have large amounts of transient population coming through without a sponsor, without being vetted, without a job, without the ability to work, it creates a lot of problems. And then, quite frankly, the county government steps in and provides services. So those that followed the work that Putnam County did last year, I think would know that I declared an emergency. We ultimately enacted a law, which I believe if you think an executive order is a good order, you don't keep extending it, every week. I experienced that as a state legislator with the former Governor Andrew Cuomo during the pandemic. I don't think that's good government. If you think something's a good policy, you do it the right way. You engage with the people's representatives, that's the legislature, and you enact the local law. So that's what we did. And our local law didn't bar any human being or restrict them from coming into Putnam County. What it did was prevent bad actors like New York City and its mayor from offloading its responsibility onto Putnam County. We require that any outside municipality that wanted to engage in a contract with one of the temporary rentals in here, specifically hotels or motels, and which would take over that facility and essentially turn it into a homeless shelter, that they would need a shared services agreement with the county. That's important for multiple reasons. You need to be able to be prepared, whether there's wraparound services, but it would require that other municipality act in good faith and communicate with our local leaders and the county government, which was not happening. The mayor did not do that. Quite frankly, he was very dishonest to a lot of people, including our neighboring counties and me. I was on a virtual Zoom meeting with him and county executives from all over the state, where he said, well, if you haven't heard from us, that's probably because we're not going there. And then about a week or so later, we learned from people in our health department that one of the motels was contacted. And they were trying to get a 5-year contract, not 4 months or 6 months, whatever the mayor was suggesting it would be. So it holds people accountable. We know that people are going to continue to travel. We know people from New York City that, whether they're migrants or not, if it's a transient population, they're going to travel and they're going to leave New York City at some point. And they're going to come into Putnam too. And there's no way we're going to stop that. We can't stop people from walking into our community. I don't believe we should either. I think it's un-American to stop brisk people and ask for their papers. We don't do that in this country. But we did successfully stop them from putting their base of operations in Putnam County, and we forced them to act in good faith. I was sued by Mayor Adams and the city of New York. Putnam County was sued, and that lawsuit was dismissed in its entirety last year. So Putnam County was very successful. Yes. Cheryl, from Instagram. What is your position on changing elections to only presidential years? Oh, wow, that's a great question. I think it's an awful idea. So, Cheryl, I have no idea what your position is, but changing it to presidential election years, I think is bad for multiple reasons. One, it means presidential politics swallows everything. We already have that problem right now, where everyone, for the most part, is focused on the White House and who's running for president. When you have local candidates running for office and they're trying to talk about, your front porch issues and your water and transit routes or anything else, and then people are all focused on national issues, unfortunately it gets swallowed up. There's also an issue with the ballot. When you have the presidential year, you have president running for office, you have members of Congress running for office, U.S. senators running for office, state legislators running for office, because they're all on even years, those specifically. And then you add in other local candidates running for office. It creates an extremely large ballot where issues and candidates get lost. And I don't think that's fair to specifically those people running for office in local government. I think they should have the opportunity to have their campaigns, their message, their ideas be introduced, at a time that's right for them. It shouldn't be absorbed by presidential politics. So that could be another election year, obviously. And I think it's important that some of the advocates for putting them in even years and presidential years, what they will do is suggest that it saves money. It's not true at all, because there are constitutional positions in the state of New York that the state's proposed law, and that might be what you're getting at here.
I think she means the
even year election.
I think
yeah. So the state passed a law to put all non-constitutional positions on even years. So that's the same argument about presidential politics would be said for gubernatorial politics. People running for governor, a lot of times that sucks up all the oxygen in the room. So the state law, though, only applies to non-constitutional positions. So people running for judge, people running for DA, I believe is a constitutional position, county clerk, it doesn't affect those. So no matter what, every county's still going to have odd-year elections. We're still going to pay to run those elections. We're not going to eliminate that. I also think it's important that you have elections every year. Call me old-fashioned, but I think it's patriotic to vote. And I think people should do it every year. I don't think it should be in every other year. I don't think it should be once every 4 years. I think they should, it's healthy for democracy to have elections every single year. And I don't see a savings financially. And I don't think it's appropriate to swallow up local government, politics, campaigns, ideas with presidential politics. It's a long answer for probably a shorter question. I apologize for that. Mr. Chris, how we doing?
We're okay. I don't see a lot more questions. I think I handed you one other question you may have missed in there about somebody's asking about.
Cheryl, Adrian, David, Ann. Oh, Ann, did I miss that? Okay.
I think so.
And pay raises.
Yeah, that's it.
Last year, you vetoed pay raises. Not every employee has a contract. Do it again. Okay. So I think the question is about pay raises. So when I ran for county executive, I made it very clear that I was going to put a freeze on pay raises for politicians. I believe I fulfilled that commitment in my first budget, which we're living in right now, the 2024 budget. I did not put a pay raise in for the elected officials that I had the ability to do that for. The legislature put it in. I vetoed it. They overrode me. That's democracy. That's how this works. In the end, whether it's through compromise, through increased engagement, through the branches, or just a result of the actual functions of government with checks and balances, we have a final budget that I think we both agreed with, all parties agreed with, at least on 95% of it. I still believe that pay raises for elected officials should be done only after contracts are settled. I think it's important as leaders that we take care of the workforce first before we take care of ourselves. That doesn't mean that we punish those in management, mid-level management, senior management, but that's always been my position. As far as what I will do or won't do, I think you're going to have to wait and just simply see my 2025 budget next year. But what I will say is I think I delivered on that commitment in my first budget, and I think every budget is a result of compromise. So that includes compromise with the legislature and the executive to get a final product that works for our county and for its taxpayers. Chris, was there another question?
No, boss, I think I'm not seeing any others. So you know what, I haven't checked my email. I'm sorry, let me check.
Well, look, I'll tell you this. I think this went well for our first dry run, if you will. If you like this, if you think this is helpful, I don't think it's necessary to do it every week or every other week, but maybe it is worth doing every month or every other month. Maybe it is worth bringing in a guest speaker, whether it's a town official or somebody else, or we could talk about whatever you want to talk about. So let me know what you think, and I'm eager to hear from you. So to close, next week, Thursday, October 3rd, budget presentation, Putnam County's beautiful historical courthouse. You can go in person, please RSVP so there's space for you, or you can watch it live streamed. It's also on our YouTube channel and on the county website, ny.gov. Thank you for tuning in.